Welcome to the For the Love of the Game podcast with your boy Jefferson Belfort and Brian Hernandez. How you doing, Brian?
Hey man, I'm feeling pretty good today. We're actually recording on our Thursday. We did it last week too, but we're getting back in the groove of everything. Recording on a Thursday, episode coming out on Friday. I'm excited. It's a sad week for both of our teams so far, but it's still a week with basketball. We're happy.
Sad,
Oh
there's
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah,
part of me.
yeah, yeah.
There's a part of me that's sad, but then there's a part of me that's like, are still tied for first in the NBA, right? In the
There
East
you
right now. But I hear
go.
you. I hear you.
Yeah,
You're
yeah, yeah.
right. But all right, let's go over some of the topics that we're going to hit today. We're going to do our weekly roundup. Then we're going to go over some disappointments for this season that we're noticing in this early part of the year. And then we'll circle back with our team spotlight, which will today be on the Toronto Raptors. Are you
Yes.
ready?
Oh yeah, let's go.
All right, perfect.
So
So the weekly
yeah,
round.
the weekly roundup. Yes. So this week, not a lot of news, not a lot going on, but just today I saw some good stuff that I think it would be actually helpful for us to talk about. So one, via Barry Jackson, the Heat are actually interested in acquiring John Wall. Now, Jeff, we had a whole conversation last week about the Heat. What do you think about John Wall in Miami?
Um, uh, Good luck with that first.
Yeah, right.
If you could get the money rounded up to pick him up in a trade, good luck with that. But I'm assuming they mean that he's gonna get bought out, right?
Yes.
But based off what you're hearing, reports have said no traction with trades. Also no traction with the Rockets on buying him out. But now if they I said it last week. I think it was last week I did say it, but I've revised my finals as of right now. My finals pick is the Heat. So if they're able to bring in John Wall, um, just makes them a little bit more deep, and that depth could be very scary later into the season. No puns intended to the scary
Yeah.
hours and James Harden. But no, they could get really scary in the playoffs. Having that much depth on the point guard side of things, the amount of playmakers that they have in now would be John Wall, not Kyrie,
Kyle Lowry.
Lowry, yeah, Kyle Lowry and Jimmy Butler. That will be a very scary team to come up against in the East.
Yeah, it's I like what you brought up because like you said, the only way this happens is if it's a buyout. Because there is pretty much there's no way to make this money work, at least from just thinking off the top of my head. There's no way they're gonna make the money work. Especially they're not gonna want to give up someone who's making that much money or fair value for John Wall. So it has to be buyout. Um, but if he goes there, that just gives them an extra piece in case of injury. Kyle Lowry's pretty old. We saw even last year with John Wall. He has his own injury problems, but he was actually still a serviceable player. He was still someone that was actually pretty useful when he's healthy. So he's been resting this entire time. I'm sure he's been working on his game. Like it's if they are able to pull that off, I'd be I'd be very afraid of Miami. It's just like you mentioned, does this buyout even happen? Because it seems like Houston's very just content, just letting John Wall chill right now on the bench.
Yeah, and he's making like 46 mil. Like, what are you gonna round up? It's not
Yeah,
like you can just put a few players together. That's two sizable contracts or one huge contract.
yeah,
Actually, you can do three or four, but like I think in season trades are subjected to like where you can't Yeah, I think you have to have equal value in like players
Yeah,
or
something.
move, right?
Hmm.
Something along those lines. So yeah, that's a lot
Yeah,
of money to make up for anyone, especially a team that already has pieces in place.
yeah.
So
It'd be interesting to see what happens to John Wall. I like watching him on my TV, but sadly, he's just doing his own thing so far. Next, this was the big one that actually dropped. So Sam Amick from the Athletic. You know, whenever I say his name, you know who he's going to be about. It's about Ben Simmons, the 76ers. This man drops every news about Ben Simmons. So the 76ers have a list of 30 players they would only want to trade for Ben Simmons or trade, yeah, for Ben Simmons. So there's some other stuff when I looked at the article. It's the three players that Amex specifically named as being high on the list were Damian Lillard, Bradley Beal, and James Harden. And then as well, the 76ers believe that a fair amount of these 30 players that they listed can become available at some point over the next 2 years. So they're implying that, like Daryl Morey mentioned this a couple weeks ago, this can go on for years. This whole situation can go on for so long. They're not trading him for anyone else other than these 30 players.
what Yeah, so Daryl Morey will be gone by the end of the year. I'm hearing if that's gonna be the case, like let's be honest, like there's
Yeah.
no way they're going to allow for him to hold out that long and not have a resolution done with this team, right? Like it's ridiculous. Honestly, it's getting to a point where it's getting ridiculous. We're 15 games
Yep.
in this season. Obviously, still early, but that's a sizable amount of games to have someone just sitting down and we don't know what's going on and everybody's moving like a status quo to be moving this way, right? So either the team have team just showed you what they thought their plan is on handling it. But the thing is, another thing that's telling, and has that list changed in the last year? Like I've been hearing about these three guys
Yeah, right.
that the Sixers wanted, and they just can't get over it. Like they won't decide to think outside of the box, which it's something that I would have said is kind of out of Daryl Morey's characteristic because he typically would be a guy that would think outside of the box and try something new. But like to have three guys that you specifically are only going to stick with, and let's be honest, James Harden, he's having a bad start to the season. He's slowly getting back to where he needs to be. I don't think he leaves he leaves Kevin Durant at this point.
Yeah.
Um, Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal's in one of the best situations he's been in since John Wall left, and then Damian Lillard. Probably the that's probably the most likely one that you could say, huh? I feel this, I feel that.
Yeah.
But we've mentioned this in the past. Is Damian Lillard has articles saying about how much he wouldn't want to leave this team. So I don't know. It wasn't new news to me.
Yeah.
It's just funny to hear that these guys have 30 names on a list. Like this is the only team that is looking at players and scouting players and thinking who would be better on their team. Everyone does this. This is not
Yeah.
new news to me,
Yeah.
honestly.
It's it's just I guess the most surprising thing is just just how long this whole thing has gone. Like no one expected this to last. Like you said, so far 15 games into the season and looks like there's no end in sight. There's still Brenton Simmons just last week was talking about, oh, if you guys keep finding me, that's only gonna worsen my mental health. And the next you know, they find him again. And like this this whole situation is just such a mess, and I can't believe
Yeah, it's a joke. It's a joke.
Yeah. So that's our weekly Ben Simmons that we have going on. Jeff, would you like to move on to our main topic for today?
Yeah. Right. So we're going to get into some of the biggest disappointments that we're seeing in this early part of the season. Granted, it may change. It is very early in the
Yeah.
season, but giving it the good old eye test right now, these are a few things that I'm seeing and thinking about. And I'm going to start with, I think everybody sees this happening, and I think we could expand upon like what we think is going on. We're about, like I said, 15 games in,
Yeah.
and our dear friend Damian Lillard is not looking like Damian Lillard. Um, if you look from what he is doing this year, he's shooting around 38% from the field, shooting 28% from the 3-point line, which sounds
Oof.
ridiculous for Damian Lillard. Has 4 rebounds, 8 assists, less than one steal, less than half a block, and then 20 points per game. And that's the lowest numbers he's had since 2013, which was his sophomore year. So
Wow. That's it's pretty crazy to see how much he's struggling from three. 28%. And especially like everyone kind of equates Damian Lillard's 3-point ability to a player of Steph Curry. They always talk about like who are the best 3-point shooters in the game. They always talk about those two guys, and yet he's struggling that much. Still impressive. I mean, I guess impressive that he's scoring over 20 points a game, but like it's I wonder what it is that's making him struggle. Is it some type of injury? Is it what people are talking about around the league of them changing the ball to the Wilson balls and all that? I really wonder what it is.
yeah, no, I have seen some talk about like the Wilson ball. I think that does play a part into what's going on with him. But also I do think mentioned it a few weeks back, of the frustrations of how the game is being called. And granted, he said he knows that he's not a guy that takes advantage of that
Yeah.
rule and gets his fouls in peculiar ways. But he's seen an all around a change in emphasis on like how fouls are being called. It's so telling about like how crazy um, his game has changed, and he's trending more to actually getting closer to the numbers that he has. But not too long ago,
Yeah.
he had a game where he only had 4 points against the Pacers on 2 of 13 shooting and was 0 of 6 from three. So,
Yikes.
you know, definitely crazy to see that out of Damian Lillard, but that this shouldn't last long.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like we keep mentioning small sample sizes, so, you know, 30 games later these numbers can completely change. But it's actually very interesting that you were talking about, or that you brought up the point where the his problem with the officiating, because right now uh I guess we've seen enough to really see of yes, the way the refs are officiating games has actually completely changed. And I'm actually kind of surprised that the NBA hasn't put out like what they're like, why they did this, and then the fact that they actually are doing this, because they did put out that they're doing the non-basketball fouls. They're taking those out of the game. Those are either going to be non calls or offensive fouls. We haven't really seen, so we've seen players kind of go away from that. But in all, the offense, they're allowing a lot more physicality to happen, and it's interesting to see. And as you mentioned, like players are going to have to adjust. Players that drive to the rim are going to uh take a lot more contact. So I'm sure as the season progresses, we're gonna see our players' numbers come back to what they were before.
I agree.
Um, so I guess let's go back and forth. So my first guy that I had was a guy that just got a pretty big contract this off season, and it's not maybe who you're thinking of at first, but it's Jaren Jackson Jr. So Jaren Jackson Jr. I guess maybe it's a I my expectations for him were higher than other people, but the reason why I have him here is because this is last season was the first off season in a long time this man was able to have or to have being healthy. So his game is still regressed. It's his best season was the 2019-20 season. He averaged 17 points. He shot 40% from 3 and or 39.4. But this season he's averaging 14 points. He's shooting 34%. He's actually his field goal percentage itself from that his best season was 46.9% to now it's 38% this season, just his field goal in total. So he's taking 12 shots and he's shooting 38%. Looking at his, recently I actually was looking at a website called Cleaning the Glass, and they provide a lot of different stats than you will normally see. And what they do, they rank them in percentiles. So a player that has a higher percentile is elite in that category. So if a player is lower, like they have a lower number like 4 or 5, that means they're on the really bottom half. So for Jaren Jackson Jr., he's at the 4th percentile in shooting 2-point percentage shots. That is extremely bad for a guy that's 6'11", who's a big man that you want to be in the paint. He's also shooting threes, but he's really been struggling. And then as well, I mean, career wise, he's never actually been a great rebounder in general, which is just kind of surprising to see that over all these years he's just made zero improvement. He's in the 14th percentile for offensive rebounds and the 30th percentile for defensive rebounds. But at the same time, so he's not grabbing rebounds, but he's actually doing pretty well with his blocks. He's in the 93rd percentile. So that's something that's nice to see him improving on being able to block more shots. But overall, Jared Jackson Jr. just signed this big contract. He should be having a big confidence boost. Not doing too well so far.
Yeah, no, definitely, sad when you see, a jersey product,
Yeah.
not doing great. But no, I'll add on to that too, is that was actually one of the names that was in the basket of GMs in the beginning part of the season of who they think was going to make that leap. And, I think both of us were pretty bullish
Yeah.
about him in the beginning part of this season. We thought, hey, the way how we see this Grizzlies team, the momentum of where they've been the last couple years, this is going to be the year Jaren Jackson comes back healthy and, claims his spot. Granted, still early on.
Yeah.
Still early on. Don't want to give up on him completely,
Exactly.
but it is telling that it's not Jaren Jackson that we were seeing a few years back, where I wouldn't say anything about like the flair of his game is still there, but like it's making that right shot selection
Yeah.
that's still out there for him that he needs to work on. And then, a lot of those deficiencies of what we're seeing right now, and I don't even think it's just him, but across the Grizzlies whole roster, is kind of masked by what Ja brings to
Yep.
the game. Granted, there's only so much he can do, but I think it allows for them to have some more time to figure things out and get to where they need to be.
Yeah, I agree. I even, I guess I expected with Ja playing so well that it would relieve some tension for Jaren Jackson Jr. It create more space for him. And so far, like you said, it's early, but he's my biggest or one of my biggest disappointments. Who do you have next?
Next for me is a team. It's not a player.
Got it.
The next person, I said the next person. The next team that I would bring up is the 2021-22 Boston Celtics. The
Ooh.
Boston Celtics. We've had conversations early in the year about this team. I think this is more not as much of what's happening for them this season, but keeping in mind complete frame of work of where they are now.
Yeah.
This was a team in 2018 we thought was on the verge of a dynasty. The further and further removed we are from Kyrie Irving being on that team, the less and less we realize Kyrie may have not been the only issue that was happening within that organization. The more and more we see slight fractures within the organization, and then it's turning into where we see they're just not team we thought they were going to be. They have a middle of the pack offense. They have a middle of the pack defense, and when you invest all of that money, all of this capital, all of these players and picks, and you have a middle of the pack team, it just doesn't look good. Um, they still have their bright sides to their team in having guys like Jaylen Brown and having Jason Tatum. But to me, granted, those guys are two great players. I think they're having an issue now where they have two players that are very, very similar. And it's a pick and choose battle when you're playing with these type of players. Marcus Smart early in the season was very vocal about how teams are scouting them and know that these two guys are going to get the ball, and when they get the ball, they're not going to pass the ball. So now they know, hey, I guess I'm not going to guard that guy because he's never going to touch the ball. and
Yeah.
I joke about this, but he was visibly upset about it after that game. They had a team meeting. And what did I do? For the first two games, they looked a little bit better, but they regressed right back into being a middle of the pack team. And I'm scared to see what comes of this. But am I shocked that this happened? No. Been saying since the summer, when you have a problem, you don't just replace it by moving someone up. You get rid of that problem. The fact that Brad Stevens was moved to a position in the front office still irks me, still upsets me, and still shows to me that nothing positive is happening for his team until he's gone.
Yeah, it's like so I think this is actually a great team to have on disappointment. So for us, we talked about it in the past. We weren't very high on the Celtics, but the media and everyone else was. And for the reason why you explained before that all these or the Celtics has such a bright future and then now look where they are now. It's right now they're kind of a mess. I would like to see them make a move. They haven't made a move in a while. Like for like some just try to make a splash. Try to do something. There's gonna be a player out there that wants out. So I hope they're priming up, getting ready to make that move. Brad Stevens, although he's now the GM, at least they don't have their last guy. I forget his name is slipping off the top of my head.
Um, Ainge,
Yes,
Danny
Danny
Ainge.
Ainge. Yes, Danny Ainge. So like we saw, Danny Ainge never made a move. We saw the million reports of, oh, the Celtics were so close to acquiring that player and this and that. Let's hope Brad Stevens is different. Let's hope that he makes the Celtics organization not look silly for promoting him to to GM after doing a terrible job as head coach.
And I'll add one more thing is after they, as many people will say, they fleeced the Nets. It almost feel like, and even they fleeced a few other teams after that as
Yeah.
well. It almost felt like the fear of becoming the butt of that joke was the reason why Danny Ainge could not pull the trigger.
Oh,
Because,
sure.
well, like you said, so many times, so many rumors you heard where they were about to get this player or be in position to get this player, and then nothing materializes, and now you're looking at 2, 3, 4 teams in top of the conference better than you now than the Celtics, and it's been a revolving door since the time that started happening.
Yeah.
That those type of rumors started happening.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would generally say I want to see the Celtics do better, but honestly, as a Knicks fan, not really. but we'll see what happens. uh,
Yes, we will.
yeah. So my next guy. So yeah, I have a guy and another guy. So I kind of teased it before, but I didn't want to put him first. He's very similar to Jaren Jackson. Got a giant contract this offseason, contract extension. And we actually have this conversation of, was it the right move and all this? And so far, it's not looking great for Michael Porter Jr. Now, super early. Super early on, he's actually out of the 15 games, he's actually only played 9 because of the main issue. I thought it was a bad idea to extend him to that much money. He's injured with back problems, and they recently did an MRI on him, and they saw nothing of great concern. But their head coach just recently came out saying he's not going to be on the team for the foreseeable future. So it's the back problem is consistent. It's always there. It's very scary. And then when he was playing, he was not good. So far, last season, Michael Porter Jr. averaged 19 points and shot 44% from 3. This man was a sniper. This season, out of the 9 games, he's played 30 minutes per game, 10 points a game, and he's shot 20% from 3 on 11 attempts. Now, he is not doing very well from his effective field goal. He's in the 11th percentile for that. He's just been not very good, and it's just so far that's my biggest disappointment for a player.
Well, I'll start off by saying, oops. I was one of the guys that was pretty big on that contract and thinking that, he was going to prove why he deserved that contract, but it's not looking good. It definitely is not looking good. Some of the stats you just said, I remember the game where he pushed through for that dunk where I think initially that's where some of this lingering back problems came back again when he went for the dunk and he missed it. And he was grimacing. And since then, like he said, he's been very ineffective being out there on the court. It's another thing with Jaren Jackson, with the Jaren Jackson Jr. situation is that they have a player that covers up their deficiencies that make them not as much of an issue. But the fact is, if you're paying a guy like that and he's giving you less than 10 points a season, you gotta start saying, okay, like, is this gonna be the guy that we're stuck with for the next 4 or 5 years? And what do we have to do if this is, the foreseeable future?
Yeah.
Luckily, like I said, they still have an MVP
Yeah.
level player that could just mask up all of those issues, but it doesn't look good. for
Yeah.
Michael Porter Jr.
And last season, I mean, he actually was one of the most efficient um shooters in the game. Just looking at like those numbers I said. So this season, he's at the 4th percentile for 3-point shooting. Last season, he was in the 92nd percentile, and he was also attempting 13 of them a game. He was so good. So if he can get back to that level, or if he can even get close to there, and if he can stay healthy, he'll be good. But so far, the back is very scary. Um, yeah. So Jeff, do you have another team, another biggest disappointment?
Uh, I have another team,
Word.
and I kind of tried to stay away from the obvious ones, but I had to come back with this one. Uh your 2021-22 Los Angeles Lakers.
Ooh.
The Los Angeles Lakers. I try to stay away from other teams that are sliding, like the Knicks, the Bucks. Even though Bucks, you kind of know why they're sliding. They're missing a lot of players,
Yeah.
but I try to stay away from those teams. But the reason why I decided the Knicks, the Lakers was definitely a team we had to address. Is and across the board, they're on the bottom half of net ratings on everything, on literally everything.
Everything.
We will go from field goals made, they're 18, field goals attempted 19, three-pointers made 21st, three-pointers attempted 25th, free throws attempted 28, offensive rebound 25th, rebounds 20th, points 23rd. The one thing that they're great at is blocks. So, and they have like 4 7-footers, so okay. But
Yeah.
but I'm just disappointed in the fact that you still do have 2-star players out there. There should be no excuse why a man that is and I believe AD is still not 30 yet.
Yep.
But a guy that's under 30, in his prime, supposedly prime of his career, and Russell Westbrook, who's not too far advanced into his career, not lead a team to W's while LeBron is not around.
Yeah.
That just doesn't spell right to me. And then how many people have you heard this year talk about Westbrook was here to replace LeBron when he's hurt,
Yeah.
to get wins? Well, that's not what I'm seeing. I just watched yesterday the Lakers and the Bucks game, and I saw Giannis wanted to prove to AD that we're two different type of players, and I'm on a different level than you are. And he made it very clear with that 47 points that he put up last night.
Yeah. So I love that you brought up the Lakers. They're actually also one of the teams that I had on here because, like you said, without LeBron, they are just not very good. And we're seeing LeBron is getting to that age where father time is really starting to creep in, and injuries are going to start happening more and more, and it's starting to become a problem, like you mentioned. So I also had some stuff for like their rankings. So their rankings, they're ranked 25th. They have the 25th ranked offense in the NBA right now. With all these guys like you named, you have LeBron. He's only played 6 games, but Anthony Davis, Russell Westbrook, Carmelo Anthony, Malik Monk, all these guys that they signed in this offseason that you thought were gonna be so beneficial to them. As we see, they're not really there. If they have the 25th ranked offense, their defense is ranked 19, but in the last 2 weeks, it's ranked 26th. Like, they are just not playing very well right now. And we even saw AD a couple days ago. He literally just flat out said, "We suck." Like they're just not living up to what everyone had them as. They're going to go into the NBA finals. And as we're seeing, They're not doing very well. I even looked at their roster or their wins and losses, and just looked at it of out of every single game that they played, which ones are like impressive wins and which ones are really bad losses. And like an impressive win is Memphis. That's a good win. In fact, that was the third game of the season. They were expected to win or not expected to win that game, but John Morant's been great this season. And then you have a win off of Miami. That's their most impressive win. That game did go to overtime. Very impressive. And then the next I can say out of their wins is Charlotte. But all these other teams, so they're 8-8 right now. The Lakers, they beat San Antonio. They lost to Oklahoma twice, which is pretty bad. They beat Cleveland. They beat Houston twice, which is the team that only has one win so far. Uh, and they beat San Antonio twice, who's also like only has 4 wins so far. Like the teams, they're winning the games as they're supposed to win, but like their schedule is actually kind of easy right now, and they're losing a lot of bad games. And it's just yeah, the Lakers not very good. Also, I thought it was pretty funny on Stat Muse. They had something about Russell Westbrook today, and it was Russell Westbrook is averaging the most career turnovers per game in NBA history, 4.1. Even if he were to have 0 turnovers for the rest of the season, he will still hold the all-time record.
Yeah, no. And that leads me to the next part of this is first I'm gonna say, we can't even just say it's a bad start. I think it's time to start saying, and I know it's still early. I think we've seen enough to say the Lakers are just not a good team.
Yeah.
I don't think that I'm delivering earth-shattering news when I say that, but the present construction of this team was not a thoughtfully made team, and it's showing in every game they play. Um, Sad to see, and like you said, now let's go into Russell Westbrook. The antics, the funny things he does, the lack of awareness, and then the lack of accountability is just he is embodying all that is wrong with the Lakers this year, and which makes it so funny, but yet so sad to see because this team is supposed to be contending. This
Yeah.
team is supposed to be seeing themselves win. And then another tragic thing that you're seeing in this early part of the Lakers season is that a lot of last year we spoke about their defensive efficiency, and then we spoke about them being one of the top 5, top 3, actually top 2 defenses in the league. They're, that defense, this defense can't even hold a candle to that defense.
Yeah.
It does not look even remotely the same. They don't have the defensive anchors that they had last year, and then they don't have the defensive leader in LeBron James even playing right now. Granted, LeBron over the years has not been the same defender, but even early on in the season, man, you could see LeBron giving up on plays. And in turn, that's leading to these players that they brought in thinking that they were going to change their game and become blue-collar players. Granted, Carmelo's having a great year, but when you look on the defensive side of the game, is he going to be the hustle guy? No. Am I going to expect that out of guys like AD? He's trying to not be injured.
Yeah.
I'm not expecting that there as well. So you're looking across the board, and they're asking a lot from players that were never asked to be those type of players in their career. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with them.
Yeah, it's I love that you brought up that they're not the defensive team that they were before. Because I was looking at the numbers. In the last 2 years, their defense was a top 5 defense, and they were extremely impressive. But right now, they're just awful, and We'll see what they do. I mean, they have a lot of new players, so maybe you say chemistry. They need some time to gel. I know Tom Thibodeau had a pretty funny quote recently where they asked him about like, oh, how long you think it's going to take for these guys to gel? And he's like, he said something on the lines of like, oh, you say 20 games and then 30 games and then 50 games. Next thing you know, the season's done. Like, stop saying like you guys, you need more time to get chemistry. Like, it's bull crap. I don't want to. I'm trying not to swear too much right now, but but yeah, man, it's yeah, they're not doing very well. Do you have anyone else? Do you like to name?
That's all on my list.
Got it. I
Brian.
have one more. So
Mhm.
you said you weren't gonna name them, but I'm gonna name them. It's the Knicks. The Knicks have been such a big disappointment right now. they've been pretty bad, and I'm also so. I watch these Knicks as real as I can, as realistic as I can, and I never expected. A lot of people had them crazy high expectations. Thought they're going to be like third seed in the East. I never even thought that was close, but I still thought they were going to be a good team. But so far, the plays that I've seen from this team have just been terrible. Last season, the Knicks were one of the best defenses in the league. I think I don't remember exactly where they ended. They ended up top 7 at least defense in the league. And that's how they won all their games. They out hustled everybody. They did all this stuff. They had no talent, but they just out hustled everybody. This season, their defense has been awful. Their defense is ranked 16th in the league, and they just been it's not the same Knicks team as it was last year. I don't know what happened. I don't know what changed. Julius Randle has been god awful. He is not making any shots that he was last season. Last season, he was averaging 24.1 points per game. He was also shooting 40% from three. He was making a lot of really tough shots this season. Not happening. He's averaging 20. He's shooting 35% from three. And he's just doesn't look like the same guy. He's forcing it every single time he has the ball. He's trying to sprint and do something like weird, and he's going back to the old Julius Randle, where every single time he has the ball, he does a spin move. His nickname, one of his nicknames was Beyblade, because all this man would do was just spin. He loved doing spin moves, and he's kind of getting back to it, and it's kind of scaring me. The Knicks are not good right now, and it's sad. What do you have to say, Jeff?
You know what? Honestly, I feel that I do feel for the Knicks and their team and like how they're constructed. I think where they're missing out on is like they're missing some of the shots that they were making in the early part of the season. The 3-pointers were going in. And right now they're missing out on production from Evan Fournier and Kemba Walker. They're just not giving you the offensive power that you brought them there for, right?
Yeah.
I think that's just early parts of the season why that's happening. But granted, there's something that just has to be said about who are they going to choose to be that guy? And I think that is the true conflict of what is happening is that I think the coaching is allowing for it to naturally that player to come. But I think that there should be a decision that's made by the team to say, you know what, we played through this guy at this point. Win or lose, we're going through him. And the facts are when I see them play, it's a little bit of is that Randall is trying to figure that out and also say, you know what, I'm not even going to allow for people to think this. I'm going to make sure it's me. And because of that, he's overcompensating and he's forcing shots. And as we get into the wean moments of a game, the shots are becoming more and more ill-advised. And
Mhm.
because of that, I'm saying either Kemba Walker tells him straight up, hey man, I know I'm known to be that guy, but this is your team. This is your team. You're gonna figure this out. I'm gonna be here right with you. When you need a shot, you need a guy to take a shot, make that shot, I'm here for you. But this is your team. You figure that out. You take the shot, you miss the shot, we'll ride with you. We're here for you. Like that should be something that's being said and resonated throughout the team. Because I really don't think that
Yeah.
it's in a culture problem. I don't think it's having the wrong players problem. It's right now figuring things out problem. And we saw it in the win moments of the last game against the Magic. Um, the Magic clearly know who their guy is. It's
Yeah.
clearly Cole Anthony because he doesn't even allow you to think it's someone else, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's funny because I guess he was kind of a candidate of someone I would say disappointing at this early part of the season is Jalen Suggs, because I thought that he was going to make a bigger presence and his presence be known right
Yeah.
away. But as I said, Cole Anthony is letting it be known who that guy is on the court. But I digress. Go back to the Knicks. The facts are that they let it slip because they didn't know who their guy was, and then the Magics won because they clearly knew who their guy was.
Yeah.
So once that's figured out, I think a lot of the problems fall into place, and Knicks look like the Knicks again of last year.
Yeah, I definitely agree of like so right now from watching them every game, it's Julius Randle is I think the coach wants Julius Randle to be that guy. But I think Julius Randle is so like hyper aware. He knows when he's playing like terrible. He knows all this stuff. So when he knows when his shot's just not there, he's just trying to pass it and get other guys going. When like you're saying, when you have that number one guy, they're supposed to take over. And we're saying that Julius Randle is just not a number one guy. He's just flat out not. He needs somebody else. And the biggest problem with the Knicks is that they just don't really have any other number one guy. It's very hard. I thought about this. It's very hard. Who is their number two guy? Because some nights when RJ Barrett has it going, he looks amazing. But when he does not have it going, he looks like one of the worst players in the NBA. He's just been terrible at shooting threes. He actually looks really bad. But like I said, when he's going off and he's able to make his 3-point shot, he's clear number two guy. So if he's not that guy, then Kemba Walker potentially. But also Kemba Walker is kind of up and down, and he's not playing. He's splitting minutes with Derrick Rose for point guard minutes and late game situations. And then you have Derrick Rose. I guess he could be the number two guy, but he's coming off the bench and he's not trying to play as many. He can't play as many minutes as he did in the past. Um, there's just no one else to really step up. And you mentioned of the shots missing. That's actually probably one of the biggest things. And looking at their offense this season, that's where just things go terribly wrong, because there's actually a pretty cool site out there called Shot Quality, and they have a bunch like a pretty advanced formula of saying of when people are open, they get a high rating of shots, and just open shots. The more teams are, if the team is taking open shots, their rating goes higher if they have good looks. And the Knicks are always generally in the top. I think I had them. They were like top 7 in the league of just taking open shots and taking the right shot. It's just that they just don't fall in and they just don't go down. So maybe eventually when more people start, making shots, they'll look better. But as of now, they've been missing everything. Man, the only reason why the Knicks actually win some games is just strictly off their bench, because their bench players give the team energy, but the bench can't fight back from a 10-15 point deficit every single game and then also close the game when they need them. So those are the big struggles. Also looking at just their schedule itself, the biggest things where I actually see them I actually feel way more comfortable a Knicks playing a tough team, because whenever they play a tough team, they actually could potentially win that game and have a good performance. But whenever they play the team like the Magic, for some reason, they just, what I can imagine, just they don't have the intensity that they usually do. And
Mm,
so far, looking at their schedule, it's actually been a pretty decently easy schedule. And I counted like some easy wins. They should have 8 easy wins, and they
mm.
only have 8 wins in total. And they versed Boston, Philly, Chicago, Milwaukee twice, and Indiana twice in Charlotte. And they those are the games that they mostly won. I mean, some of those teams I listed they lost to as well, but they
Mm.
just been losing every single easy game. And so we'll see if things balance out more later in the season. But so far,
Yep.
man, pretty bad.
It sounds kind of similar of the Nets from last year, is that they would play down to their
Yeah,
opponents, and that's what it's seeming to be. You brought up them coming back into games, and I think the notable game you're talking about is that Bucks game when I
yeah,
believe the whole game, you know. So I definitely agree. I like we said, very early in the season doesn't mean that this is how they're going to look for the rest of the season,
yeah.
and we'll figure it out. They'll figure it out.
Yes, they'll definitely figure it out. Hopefully, we'll see. As of
Yep.
right now, I'm looking at like maybe I'm hoping for a 6 seed and just avoid the play-in, but maybe potentially play-in, especially with how some of these other teams have been playing. Um, Also, what actually I wanted to bring up with the Lakers, I forgot to bring this up though. When we're talking about the Lakers, it's kind of funny with how Westbrook went from the Wizards, who were not doing very well last season, went there, and now they traded Kuzma, they traded Harrell, and yet the Wizards are playing way better with Spencer Dinwiddie running the show than Russell Westbrook.
That's
It,
crazy. Honestly, I actually said this on Twitter this week too,
oh yeah,
is that it's time to pose the question: is Spencer Dinwiddie a bona fide all star? You know, the facts are he looks good. He's helping this team the same way I saw him help that 2018, 19, 2019, 2020 Nets before the bubble, when Kyrie was a little bit hurt. He was rounding into a fringe star in my mind. He was averaging around 20 points per game at that time as well. The guy is a good player. So it's time to start having that conversation. Do I say 100% that this guy should be in the playoffs? I don't know. But if they continue to look like what they are, we had conversations offline, Brian.
yeah.
We we think they're going to find their way back to earth, right? But I said the same thing about the 2015,
Yeah.
2016 Warriors till they took it all the way to the finals. So who knows?
Yeah, I think people need to start putting some respect on Spencer Dinwiddie's name. This man is extremely impressive, and yeah, we'll see what happens as we said it a million times. This podcast, it's early, but I mean, I think we're close to 1/5 of the season, or through the season so far. So we're starting to see some key elements of what we can expect to see from now on. But overall, I actually thought this was pretty fun. It's a different twist because we always talk about all the good, and I love talking about all the good. But hey, who's not living up to expectations right now? And I thought we did a good job covering it.
You
So,
are right. I do agree.
like last week, we recorded our team spotlight beforehand. So for the listeners, that's going to be right after this portion. I thought it was really awesome. So the person that we had this week, we're doing the Raptors. The person we had this week is actually a good friend of the show. if you're looking at our logo right now, he designed our logo. He designed our banner. He's been extremely huge help. Want to give him the shout out of Teddy Rico Designs on Twitter. Claude right now, he's killing it. He's doing awesome. I really am thankful that he did our logo. But he's going to be talking about the Raptors. I thought it was really insightful. I thought it was really great. It was a lot of fun. So be sure to listen to that. Do you have anything you want to say, Jeff, before we move on to that?
Oh man, on a long week like this, when Stephen A. Smith lambasts your team, just remember that we are only 15 games in, and because of that, I can hold my head high and I can smile the rest of the night. So that's about it. That's all I got.
Where y'all? Yeah, Stephen A. He's gonna put on a big show all the time. So he has to do it. He definitely seems still a little bit butthurt about the whole Kyrie Nick situation. We talked about it offline. We'll talk about it more in the future. I'm personally not, but it's really funny to see him just go off about it all. So for the listeners, be sure, like I mentioned every week, follow Jeff on Twitter, our For the Love of the Game podcast Twitter account. Jeff does an amazing job on there. Check out the YouTube. You can see our faces while we do the podcast. And yeah, be sure to listen to our team spotlight on the Toronto Raptors.
All right, this is our team spotlight, and the team that we're doing this week is the Toronto Raptors. Right now, they're currently seated in the Beast East, eighth right now, fourth in the Atlantic. A lot of tough competition in the Atlantic, like always. They're 7-6 right now. I don't know if I mentioned that, but they're also scoring. They're ranked 23rd in the league right now, so they're in the bottom half right now. With 104 points per games, and they're allowing around 102 per game, but that got them ranked at fourth in the league. So they're looking pretty good defensively. Just an intro into our resident Raptors expert, Claude.
Yeah, you know what I mean? The Raptors this year, I feel like we all right, first, a lot of people, already counted us out because of last year. Last year was a horrible year. Like, I feel like last year was just like it was a whole away game. Like, we were never home. Like, even people would come to Tampa, they'd be cheering to other people, like, yo, what's up with that? What's up with that? You know what I mean? So it's like this year we come in here and we're gonna show everybody what we got. You know what I mean? That's basically what it is. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
So, like you mentioned last year. Last year was, you guys. It seemed like the expectations were pretty high, of course, and then it kind of things blew up. Injuries happened, all that stuff. You guys ended up 27 wins and 45 losses. So now coming into this year, you guys got great draft pick. We'll talk more about him very soon. What are the expectations right now around this Raptors team? Are you guys looking for playoffs? Do you guys think you can contend? Are you looking for another lottery year? Talk to me.
Nah, like I think this year is basically we want to make the playoffs. Like that's definitely like I feel like that should be the answer for every team. You should always want to make the playoffs. So basically, we want to make the playoffs, but also like we want to win and also teach the young guys. You know what I mean? Like Scotty, he already jumping out the gym from the jump. So you know what I mean? So basically, we want to be in a competition with everybody else because like our defense is up there. We just need to get our offense going and things like that.
So, like you're saying, the offense is struggling at the moment. What about the offense is the struggle point at the moment?
I said we don't have that much offensive firepower. Like, OG basically he grew. Like, I'm proud of him. Like, OG, my man, like he grew, and right now, like since like Pascal Siakam not really around, like he became the main option, and he's done that. But him and Freddie they carry the burden for the team, but then everybody else needs to like help them out because like you know what I mean, the bench just come in and it gets stagnant and things like that, and then they got to come back out and then continue playing hard just to keep up with everybody else. So
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because looking at your starting lineup, it's
yeah,
you guys actually have a lot of talent, but like you mentioned, like looking at your bench, that's when things start to drag on. And you talked about Pascal, and what I actually found was pretty interesting because just a few days ago, or starting a few days ago, Pascal has been coming back. And we've been seeing him in games, and we've been seeing the Raptors have. Jeff and I talked about this in the past of what's this lineup going to look like when you have, because the Raptors are pretty much, you can tell what type of player they like. They like their 6'8", 6'7" wings, and they're giant, they're long, and they can pretty much do everything. And as you see, they have three of these guys right now, and they started them. They started a lineup. What was it? It was Van Vliet. You got Gary Trent. You had OG, a Scotty Barnes, and then you're running Pascal at center. What did you think about this 5-man lineup?
So with this lineup, the reason I was cool with it is because like the only person you would really swap out out of there would be Gary Trent for Precious Achiuwa and put him at the center. But because Gary Trent plays way better when he's a starter than when he comes off the bench. So you really couldn't like let him come off the bench for that. So like I really have no problem with that lineup. That lineup is straight. I like it like that.
You're like, all right, so yeah, so you've been liking what you've been seeing so far. That's interesting that you said Gary Trent is struggling coming off the bench because we generally, you see it the opposite way around. Like you see when people get to go against bench players, they tend to perform better. But it seems like he likes the
he liked the spotlight for that.
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to interject on that too as well, Brian. Is I guess and I hope this is not one of your rapid fire questions, Brian, but you bring up Gary Trent. We're a year removed from the trade. Who do you think won that trade?
I'm gonna say us, cause like when he was in Portland, his defense wasn't like this, like the way it is now. Like he's like number 2, number 3 in like deflections in the league now. So his defense has really gone up from what it was before. His shooting is still kind of streaky and things like that, but it's gonna get better throughout the time as long as he keep playing good. So
you think it's more of like a collective buy-in, like all of the teams buying into defense, so everybody that potentially touches this team is going to have that same energy.
That's the way Nick Nurse want to run it. You know what I mean? Defense. You gotta stop people from scoring. You know.
And I mean, we're seeing the results already. If they're ranked 4th in the league. I mean, it's still early, but to see that coming out with a lot of new players and all that, and especially having Scotty having a giant role right now, coming out as a rookie. Tell me what you see about Scotty Barnes.
Scotty, my man, yeah. Like Scotty really gonna be the future. Like I like the way I envision it is like it's gonna be Scotty and OG just going 1-2 punch, and then Pascal come in just to like as the big dog and just put everything together. And my boy Federico Van Vliet gonna be doing his thing. I know y'all probably didn't see him last night, but he came out there with the San Cassell thing. He the bulldog. I mess with him. You know what I mean? It's gonna be good. I like it.
Going into the draft, it was looking at a lot of projections and draft boards. I actually saw a lot of, Scotty Barnes potentially going 5 or even potentially going 3. But it was generally like the consensus was Jalen Suggs was going to go to the Raptors. Do you guys feel like you made the right decision? Do you feel like, or what was your thought process, at least going into the draft? And were you surprised by them getting Scotty?
So the way I was looking at it, we already drafted Malachi Flynn, and we would have too many point guards on the team. So I was, and in Masai Ujiri we trust. You know what I mean? He the big boss. So I trusted that he was going to make the right decision. When we chose Scotty, I was just like, I bet. You know what I mean? He clearly sees something in him that we don't see. So I just let him do what he do. He the boss. So
I'll
that's
say
how I look
something
at
to
it.
that too. It's like, very early on, I had those conversations with Brian, and I liked the pick from the get go. From what I was seeing, what he was doing in Florida State, I knew that he was going to be an instant impact type of player. The facts are is that yes, kind of is funny because when he was in Florida State, he was utilizing his scoring more, and you see that aspect of his game showing in the league. But the defensive presence, it was there in college, but it has taken an uptick into what he's doing in the NBA. So I do. I called it, and I'm going to stay by it. Like I had a feeling this guy was going to do something big in the league.
Yeah.
What do you think about his playmaking ability? Because as I remember going into the draft, I was doing a ton of research, and I listened to a podcast that actually had one of Florida State's assistant coaches, and they talked about Scotty, and like they said, the minute that they saw him, they were like, "You're going to be a point guard," and they wanted the ball in his hands at all times, and we see this kind of translate into the way he plays now. Like, what do you think about like his playmaking ability, at least going forward as well?
Like his playmaking, I really like it's really good. Like he's able to like run in and then pass it out to get an open man. Like especially when him and Boucher are playing, or him and Delano Benson play. Like when them two play, and then like they just going because like Delano Benson, he basically he's supposed to be a power forward, but they made him a point guard. And then they do the same thing with Scotty, and then it's just like you don't know what's gonna happen. Like literally, he could pass it to him, and then he just go into the paint and just slam it on you. You know what I mean? Or he'll probably go in and do it like a nice Euro step, like he Giannis. Scotty's really impressive. I really enjoy watching him play.
Yeah, he's definitely right now. I would say he's top two in the running for rookie of the year. You got
Yeah,
him and you got Mobley. Those
yeah,
guys are I would say clear above everyone else.
yeah,
Um, I wanted to ask as well. So I see you got the poster behind you. You got
yeah,
Kyle Lowry there. You guys, I mean, he's been running this team for so long, and you guys did what was it, a sign and trade with Miami, and you
yeah.
guys got Goran Dragic onto the team, and you got Precious on the team. Do you see Goran like staying and playing with the team like for real? And how do you think Precious fits into the Raptors?
All right, so with Goran, I feel like he's Nick Nurse basically gave all his minutes to Banton because I feel like this there's something that he sees in Banton that he appreciates more than what he's seeing in Goran. I would like to see Goran play more because he is a vet, and he sees the floor better, than other people. So I would like to see him get more minutes, but I also want to see my boy Banton shine a little bit. You know what I mean? Like he's because he's really playing good. He's really doing the things that he needs to do. And with Precious, it could go either way. Like he could literally be really good, but then sometimes he just like yesterday he went for 1 for 7, and you know what I mean. Like you have sometimes you do have bad shooting nights and things like that, but sometimes like I just be looking at it like, damn man, like when you get the rebound, you don't always have to go back down to the floor and bounce it. Just put it up, man. Just. But I feel like those type of mechanics would change over time. He'll get better, and then he'll just become what we need, and that's all I could hope for.
Yeah, I like that. I was always wondering because whenever I'm looking at Raptors games and even looking at them last season, one of the biggest guys that I saw coming out was Boucher.
Yeah,
And looking at him this year, it seems like you guys aren't really playing him as much. I mean, he had a good game last night, but I was
yeah.
wondering, like, what do you think the thought process is playing, Precious over him and not giving as much minutes to Boucher?
So with Boucher, right? He's streaky. Like sometimes he'll come off the bench and he'll just be trigger happy, just shoot anything that he needs to. And Nick Nurse will just be looking at him like, "Yo, what are you doing, bro?" Like, but last night he actually like he found something, and he basically calmed himself down. He was hitting them threes. You know what I mean? He was out here blocking people. He actually, and he's actually a really good player. Like when he was playing with the 905 Raptors. he was playing really well. That's the reason why they gave him the opportunity. So he just needs to. If I was him, I'll just stay focused, listen to what Nick Nurse wants, and just keep balling. And then you're gonna be here for a minute if he does that.
Well, I have something to say with that too. Is that you've seen in this early part of the year that Nick Nurse has been critical of him. Do you think that is more of Nick Nurse pushing him to get better, or do you think that they're not liking what they're seeing out of him?
I feel like that's for Nick Nurse to get make him better. Cause he did this last year and then he came out and did he dropped 20. So it's literally Nick Nurse is yo, I gotta be hard on you. And the reason I'm hard on you is so that you could come out and give me what I want from you. Cause he know the type of player that he is. So he's like that dad that's always on your back. Yo, you need to study harder. You need to do this harder. Cause I know what you could actually do. Yeah.
I'm wondering. So I hear. Looking at the Raptors, you can see they actually have a really bright future. Even though they were always really good, and then just last season they took a step down. But that step down actually really paid off in getting them Scotty. And looking at them, what do you think they need, or what is this path for them to being a legit title contender?
Literally, I feel like our offense literally does need to go up because we really we are at the bottom, near the bottom, and that's because yeah, we can stop teams from scoring, but if we can't score, how does that help us? You know what I mean? So our scoring really does need to go up. And sometimes late in the fourth quarter, especially because OG was the number one scorer, I see that he'll literally give up a little bit and then defer the ball. I need him to be more confident in just taking them shots. Like you said before, anytime he shoots, he don't shoot to miss. So it's just you know what I mean? That's the type of energy I need from him all 48 minutes of the game. So yeah, that's I trust him. It's just the offense needs to get way better. That's what it is.
So do you think that the answer for your offense is on the team currently, or do you guys have to start looking elsewhere to find that, or you think you're just a couple steps away draft wise, or to finding that person?
So I feel like we probably need a couple drafts because right now Van Vliet play heavy minutes, OG play heavy minutes, and that's a toll. And I understand the people on the bench Banton, they need to carry their load and things like that. But it's sometimes everybody just be streaky. When we played the Celtics, we literally got blown out because we really couldn't hit a shot at all, and that's a problem. So it's they'll probably most likely trade Dragic to get somebody like that, a shooter that would better help off to come off the bench and things like that.
With we talked about OG a few times already, and do you think so? Right now, he's having an amazing year. Do you think with Pascal coming back and all that, do you think that's gonna hurt him a little bit from? You think he's gonna keep his numbers the same, or how do you think those two are gonna fit again?
I feel like he'll definitely keep the numbers the same because the way I see it working, Nick Nurse will have at least two of the starters out with the bench every single rotation. So if Siakam is off the floor, OG and probably Barnes will be on the floor doing their things with the bench, and then Fred will come in with Siakam and do their thing. So he'll still have his opportunities to get those points and things like that. He just need to be assertive and go out there and get them. You know what I mean? He I seen him do this move he was dirt and whiskey. I was just damn, where he get that from? So he basically he has it. He just got to be more confident and just let it rip. You know?
Yeah, man. I've been seeing OG just been going off, especially against my Knicks. It hurt
Oh
me.
yeah.
It hurt me. This man went off. He was making everything. He's this man. He can tell he's taking a step up. He's doing what he needs to do. He's playing good defense, and I think the Raptors are going to be looking to be a legit team, and a lot of people I feel are sleeping on them. I wanted to get your thoughts. So I think this is going to be a new thing that we're going to be asking all our guests on Team Spotlight. But so right now, what do you think? Give me a number. How many wins do you think the Raptors finish with this year?
Oh man,
Or what do you
I'm
think
going.
they finish in the standings? Because you said playoffs, so we need receipts here.
So I'm gonna say I'm gonna have confidence. I'm gonna say 5-6. That's what I'm gonna say. Five
Ooh.
That's a
six.
lot of confidence.
Hey man, 5-6. You know what I mean? And like, Siakam gonna come back. He's literally gonna get into the flow of things. He gonna do his little spin of Rudy on the court. He gonna do his thing. And I feel like everybody's just gonna gel together, and we gonna make it work. I believe in Nick Nurse, and I feel like this team really could do things this year. It's just they just gotta do it and they believe it. They gotta believe in the system.
Let me push back on that then. Who do you think they're going to be above then? Because we're looking at it currently. Wizards are one. Who also is at that one seed? I know the Nets are up there. I know.
So
Just
it's Washington and Chicago are 1 and 2. Brooklyn, Philly, Cleveland, New York, Miami, and then Toronto right now is currently 8, and then Milwaukee 9. And you got all the other teams in. At the moment, Atlanta is number 13.
Okay. So I feel like it's gonna be bad to say because I don't want to hate on the Cavaliers because what LeBron did to us, but I feel like their moment gonna go down somewhere. You know what I mean? Because plus we almost won that game. You saw my boy Scotty flip my man's over. So what I mean. We coming, we coming, and you know what I mean. And I also don't want to talk bad about the Knicks because they did do things last year, but
No?
I'm gonna say we're gonna go for that. You know what I mean? Like I feel like the Wizards gonna come down to earth sooner or later. Like they're not gonna be like that the whole year. Hopefully not. But I feel like they'll come down to earth. So I feel like that's how we get the 5-6.
Definitely not mad at it. I mean, if they make it, I mean that's the way that's gonna happen. Especially,
Yeah.
I mean, you talked about the Knicks right now. I'm a little sad on my Knicks. They're not looking that great right now. They're not playing like they were last year. Because last year it was all about hustle and
Yeah.
grit and all that. And this year I see none of that. And I see a bunch of crying of getting no calls and missing wide open shots. And it's a little sad right now. A lot of fans are going crazy, but we'll see what
Yeah.
happens. But if they're gonna get 5 or 6, that's how they do it.
Yeah.
So, Jeff, do you have anything else you want to ask before
Yeah,
we
so
finish?
we could go back into some of the stats that I was seeing.
Yeah.
I was actually kind of shocked by some of the stats that I saw them net rating where they were high at is first you have their first in net rating in field goals attempted. So like you said, they're going to let it fly. They're going to let it fly. And then they're 7th in field goals made during this season, in the beginning part of the season. But the really telling part of, even though they're top 10 in both of those, their field goal percentage has them at 22nd. So it's not the lack of them taking the shots. It's more of like, how are they going to get better shots? And we'll see as the season progresses how that changes for them. And then you guys are netting number 1 in steals. I like that about your team is they've always been known to be a scrappy group of guys. They definitely are going to continue to have that mold of players because they just have a lot of guys that do that, go out there and do that.
Man.
But it now leads me to going back into talking about a little bit of some history, right? Before the 2018-2019 season, like you said, Raptors were going up against LeBron, and they just could not get past him. And Masai Ujiri took the time to go on and make a very daring trade and get Kawhi Leonard on the team. And I wouldn't say he leveraged a lot of pieces that wind up becoming any big players anyways, but with the amount of I wouldn't say prospects, but talent that could turn into something big. Do you think that that's something that Masai Ujiri has on the table for the future with this team? Because if you were already daring to do it once, why not try it again? In my mind.
So I feel for that trade, I feel like the most reason why it kind of went off is because like at one point, I don't know if you remember, uh DeMar DeRozan was in a press conference and things, and he was just like, if we had that guy too, you know what I mean, we be. And I feel like that kind of hurt a lot of people. Like, bro, like this dude been dominating us for years. You just gonna sit there and say that, and then so I feel like that kind of like brought a little light to it. Like, yo, man, this man gotta go. But I was heartbroken when he left. I'm not gonna lie. But I feel like Ujiri, he's a smart guy. Like he literally looks at things and he like just like with Scotty Barnes. Nobody really people really wanted him to pick up Jalen Suggs, but he saw something and he made the right decision and got Scotty. So I feel like if he thinks that he could basically trade off some young assets and like get something better and it'll work, I feel like he'll be the one to make that decision for it because he's done it already and it worked. He got a championship because of it.
The reason why I asked that too, because now we have like a similar situation where a player is starting to get disgruntled, and I wonder where you think is Masai Ujiri calling in and asking questions about this? And that player I'm talking about is Damian Lillard. Do you think that would be something that he would consider? I could see a way where they make a trade where they send like Fred, they send a few other pieces, and then they build it around Siakam, Scotty, and Lillard.
Like like most definitely he would have conversations with them. Like he had conversations about Ben Simmons, and then they think Ben Simmons is like the holy grail. It was like, well, hold on a second. You want me to give you this and this and this for Ben Simmons? Like, relax. You know what I mean? So he will have conversations if that was the case. Like if that's the case, he would have conversations with them. But again, he'll see what makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, he's not gonna pull the trigger on that.
Yeah, it's I mean, so far everything that Masai's done is just like this man just making gold out of nothing. And that Scotty pick is extremely impressive because like we were just saying, that wasn't the consensus that most people were going with, and everyone was extremely high on Jalen Suggs, and even Scotty coming into the draft boards at first was even like a lot higher. Like he wasn't gonna be drafted even like top 5, but then as more people saw him, they fell in love with him, and it's extremely impressive of what they've done so far. So I think that's actually a really good spot to end this team spotlight. I think Claude, you've been extremely helpful. Our resident Raptors expert right now. Dropping knowledge on us. I thought you did an amazing job. I would love to talk more basketball with you, more Raptors with you again in the future. And I really appreciate having you on.
Man, I appreciate to be here. You know what I mean? Like it's fun. I got a chance to show my little poster right here.
There
You know what I mean? So I'm really excited. No lie. I was hoping that like we had beat the Nets. So I come in here with a big W.
Yeah.
but hey,
like
man, life can't happen like that.
The blue collar boys, they get the job done.
I'm sure we're gonna hear a lot from the listeners of how insightful you were today, and really appreciate having you on.
All right, but thanks for having me.